Vietnam, Mexico, Hawaii. Ever since starting surfing 6 years ago, like my life's completely changed. I've changed as a person and just wanted to go through my whole 6 year surfing journey, starting with that. That was 2019. My birthday, I turned 25. Took a first lesson. Immediately got a surfboard when I got back. I was in college at the time, down in San Diego. I don't have a lot of clips between starting and 2021. 2021's when I got a proper camera to get filmed. But here's just some that I found. I got going down the line and catching waves pretty quick. Only took me like, within the first couple weeks. And the first board I got was like a 7.6, 7S Superfish. And I quickly got like a 5.6 Von Soul Flying Manta after that. And I could catch waves, but I wasn't really going down the line. Then I hopped back on a foamy for just a tiny bit. Learned to go down the line properly. And got some other boards. I got like a RNF Retro from Lost, like a 591. I got this one that you see here. This was like one of the first big-ish days that I had surfed. It's actually Tommy Surfs right there. Love his YouTube channel, so it was cool running into him. Dope guy. Yeah, you can still see me missing waves, eating crap all the time. This is a lot of footage I put together, and this is not even like all of it. I cut out a ton of, just catching closeouts, missing waves. That's all part of learning, part of the journey, but most of that stuff's board and watch. So I left in some of the low lights, a lot of average stuff, some of the better stuff. But yeah, during my whole, even like my first year, 2 years, now 6 years, I surfed and tried so many different boards. I've probably ridden at least, I want to say 60 different boards, all different kinds, short, long, mid, everything in between. It's like messing around with different stuff and, trying things for different conditions. You see me longboarding here. I didn't really get much into longboarding until quite a bit later, maybe like, you'll see in the footage. I play around with it like 2023, I think, maybe 24, but I didn't really start riding it more until this last summer, 25, but then I've kind of gotten off of it again. This board here, you'll see me ride a lot, is a 611 Stamps. It's a channel twin pin. After seeing Torrin Martin and his sick videos on YouTube, of course I was inspired to get something similar. So that was actually my first custom board. Pretty much everything I've owned outside of that board has been a used board. I have one other board that I have that you'll see later that I got new as well, which was a custom. This wave and the previous wave were like a couple of my more memorable waves from early on. This is my friend here that I surfed with back then, and I wanted to throw him in there because he was like only about shortboarding pretty much. Only performed shortboards, was really into like Jordy and the WSL. And I had a different philosophy. I guess like for some reason that type of surfing didn't appeal to me at the time. It definitely does now. But I guess like when I watched it back then, I didn't really understand surfing or what they were doing enough. Like their big hacks and their turns to me looked repetitive and I don't know if I would say like not that fun, but just too, show offy or I'm not sure. Maybe I was telling myself that because I didn't think it was possible for me to do those things. Maybe, probably. But whatever the case was, I mostly stuck to like alt boards, alternative craft, like this mid-length twin and fishes and mini Simmons and weird stuff like that. More glidey, more cruisy stuff. But you see him there, like his surfing wasn't the smoothest or the best, and he improved since that, of course. He stopped surfing for med school, but from that video, when he continued surfing from that, he got better and he made improvements. But to me, I felt like I didn't want that like stage where I surfed really choppy and weird on a short board, and I surfed at places with lots of crowds and bigger boards helped. But anyways, funny wipeout there. You saw him like sitting on the beach a couple clips before that. He got worked and like almost drowned. And yeah, we were still major kooks at the time. Still am. But got some fun ones. That January was really good. A lot of big swell that month. Yeah, you see me, throughout these January, early years, doing like really slow, basic turns, catching the wave in like a decent spot. I remember this day actually, one of the fin boxes broke and I lost one of the fins. And I was surfing half the session with that board with just one fin in it and didn't even realize until I caught one in and turned the board over because it was feeling really weird and it was feeling like super squirrely on certain turns. You'll see me end up switching boards during that session, but yeah, you see me bog a ton. I'm not moving my feet. I'm not really feeling the board or feeling the wave. It doesn't come till later. Doing all right though. I mean, about a year in, just over a year in. Having a lot of fun. I surfed solo a lot. At the time, my significant other did get into surfing maybe sometime in 2022, but wouldn't go as often as me. Wasn't as into it. So I went a lot myself, and like I said, I was in school, but that school was like 10 minutes from the beach, whereas where I live now and where I lived before that is like 30 minutes from the beach. So it was nice getting real close and barely go to class and surf. Maybe I was averaging 3 to 4 days a week, maybe like my first 4 years or so. This year I've been surfing more, probably average like 5 days a week. But that wasn't until like this summer. During this entire video, you'll see that there's some major gaps in the months. I wasn't surfing consistently like all these 6 years. There's probably been like maybe 6, 7, 8 times where I missed like a month or more of surfing, or multiple months where I only surfed like a handful of sessions due to injuries, travel, getting into other things. Like I got into Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu at one point for a while, and then there's two stints where I really got into golf, and was not doing much surfing for like a long time, especially last winter and spring. I barely surfed. Pretty much just got back into it last summer. This is the 59 Lost RNF Retro I was talking about. I like that board a lot. That was one of the boards that I rode for the longest. Honestly, should have kept a lot of my boards that I liked much longer instead of hopping around in equipment so much. This one is a 8.0 Trimcraft Haley pin, which is like the Love Machine or Ryan Lovelace Thick Lizzie, same thing pretty much. It's like a mini glider. Usually ran it as a single fin. So yeah, you'll see me ride a lot of different types of boards. And I'm making this video because I saw someone else make a 2-year surf video progression. Let me get his name right real quick. His name was Maxim Besson. So shout out Maxim. Hopefully I'm pronouncing your name right. I think he's in France or something like that. But he uploaded like a 2-year surf progression video. He's been surfing 3 years, I think, and started learning at about the same age as me, 24, 25. I think he started. Mine was right when I turned 25. But he was really impressive. And he pretty much exclusively rode short boards. After like 6 months or something like that. And I think he only stuck to like 2 or 3 main boards, like a daily driver and eventually like a groveler. But his performance surfing, I think is better than mine. And he's been surfing a shorter amount of time than me. And I think he has some skating experience, which I think helps with that. But also just sticking. The main thing I think is just sticking to just 1 or 2 boards, standard thruster or whatever, and just really getting a feel for those boards. He surfs a lot of empty waves, which helps a lot too. And he goes out of his way to do that, which is good. I try to go out of my way, but where I live, like in this whole region, it's not easy to find empty waves. And I mean, again, you see throughout my video, I'm surfing a lot of junky waves, like a lot of not good condition waves. A lot of them not even really short boardable. Like you can, but like I said, my philosophy or ideology at the time, for whatever reason, was like shying away or, not into performance style surfing until much more recently. And I don't really regret it. Like if I could go back and do it again, I probably would get like a more beginner friendly shortboard and stick with it and ride that in a lot more conditions and days. Not completely exclusively, but like as my main board. But the other thing was like a lot of the friends that I did surf with, when I would surf with friends, they would want to go to spots that are very like longboard friendly and softer. So there's a lot of other people out there on longboards and the waves are soft like this. So, performance shortboard wasn't really ideal for those spots. And I didn't want a longboard, so I kind of fell into riding a lot of mids and fishes, like I said. Even now, honestly, like I'm trying to get a little bit more into that performance realm, and I have a pretty big quiver right now, like I don't know, 15 boards or something. And a lot of them are alt boards. A few of them are like performance oriented. But I have trouble sticking to like just 1 or 2 boards. I keep wanting to like hop around different stuff, even when I keep telling myself, just ride 1. Just get dialed in on 1. Because you'll see throughout these videos and even later on, like I still have trouble with my back foot positioning, especially returns. Like I struggle to get my back foot all the way back, and been making some better progress with that really recently. I don't have any clips of that, but it's a little bit difficult when you're switching boards all the time because sweet spot changes and just more variables. I remember that one. It's another friend that I surfed with a lot in the past, and he's a really good surfer. He's pretty much started learning as an adult too, but was like maybe 2 or 3 years ahead of me. He would surf longboards a lot, finless like that, mid lengths, and he was a really stylish, good surfer that didn't do any real like performance surfing either. But had really good feel for the wave and ocean and water knowledge, I guess. That's on a 5-foot flat mini Simmons. This back on that twin. Yeah, this is through is this early 2021. You still see same kind of surfing, same kind of waves, outrunning the pocket a lot. I do cutbacks here and there, but not super on rail. Not finishing a lot of my turns. Pretty much like almost never linking maneuvers. A lot of bogging like that. It's back on the fish, 5'9". Posture there is pretty decent. You'll see two of the things that I kind of struggle with like throughout this entire 6 years is back foot placement. And on my pop-ups you'll see, like even that one, right? You'll see my back foot and my back knee kind of points like bows outwards. That one was a pretty good one. But I didn't learn until like very recently that, I kind of knew this, but I didn't really realize how much it affected my surfing until recently. But basically, like, I was super into basketball for a huge part of my early life. And I would always wear like tight sneakers, tight basketball shoes, like laced up super tight. So my toes were like this all the time. And every time I jump while I'm playing basketball, which is like every day for years and years, like jamming my toes into that toe box, tight toe box in the shoe. And I developed like some mild moderate bunions, and my toes are very like inflexible. They can't bend back. At least at the time, they couldn't bend back very well, and they're very weak. So like going on my tippy toes and bending them and putting a lot of pressure on them, like they can't handle my body weight very well, like for example in a lunge position. So the pop-up, I end up compensating a lot by trying to land my back foot like flat on the sole rather than on the side of the foot or on the toes with the toes curled, or not curled but bent backwards. So I unconsciously like kind of avoid those positions, which kind of screws my back leg up, my back foot up, and it kind of affects the whole rest of the ride until I get like my feet set well. And I've been kind of working on that, like working out my toes and stretching them, and it's been helping recently, and just being way more mindful about my pop-up. But if your pop-up looks like that, like the back knee really flared out, like that was a pretty good pop-up too. But when I don't concentrate on it very hard and I kind of lose focus, or I haven't been surfing that much, the bad habit comes back a lot. But yeah, check that, because I never really heard anybody talk about this, which is, are your toes like even my hands and my fingers, like they're very stiff. weak, pushing them back like that. So if your toes are like that, stiff and weak, check. If your pop-up is bad and you compensate in the way I'm talking about, yeah, check your foot, see if that's could be the root cause, and work on that. It's not permanent. Something you can work on. That board there is also like the orange board. That's the other only new board that I bought, the custom. That one's a 6-4 Trimcraft burner. I got that board after I went to the North Shore and surfed some bigger waves, and I took the 611 twin, and I felt way too fast and out of control. So I got this board when I came back, and it's like a travel board. I can handle better waves and ideally work at home and be kind of like a lead in from mid lengths into like a performance shortboard. I think this is when I really try to start shortboarding for the first time, like more for real. I think that one's a 5.7 Lost Uber Driver XL. At this time, I had already graduated 2020. I moved back home to a place like 30 minutes away from the beach, and then at this point, I moved to another city where I was like 10 minutes away from the beach again. So I was able to surf a little bit more. So I decided to get into shortboarding, but shortly after this is when I did get into martial arts, so fell off again a little bit. Yeah, you see at like this break, the wave has some shape. It's a little soft this day, but this particular break can have some pretty decent shape. Like any board works here, but it's not so competitive with like other longboarders, with other big boards, and it makes it really hard to get a wave on a short board. Just playing around. It's kind of funny how I surf more now and I'm further away from the beach now than I did at that time, and like sometimes when you live close to the beach, you kind of take it for granted, and you become kind of more picky with the days that you go out, and you end up not even going out that much. That happened to me a few times when I lived closer to the beach, and now that I'm away from the beach, oh man, I regret it. I'm like, oh, I would have surfed every day if I could, and I very much want to be closer to the beach again. This wave here, nothing particularly special, but as you see here, I was really big into OMBE, and I was lucky enough to have them analyze that clip. I sent it in, which was pretty cool. And funny story, but when I went to Vietnam to surf one of the times, I actually ran into Ant, who was with OMBE at the time, and I was a big fan of, and thought he was a really funny guy. And it's just crazy, like running into him out in the water in a country that like neither of us are from and isn't really that known for surfing and the surf culture. Surfing there was only really started like 6-7 years ago or something like that. Yeah, shortboarding here. I'm just having fun on a wave storm. I don't know why, but I'm not the best about getting up early to surf, so you can see that I surf like onshore, late morning, afternoon conditions all the time. It's probably more like windy days than glassy days. This whole video. Back on the mid-length here. Completed that turn. Cut it off too early, and that's why I bugged. That was probably one of the bigger waves. Only in general, super soft wave though, but size. Yeah, at this time I still wasn't like really in touch with the wave, and I wasn't really reading the details in the wave or surfing on rail. Like you can see by the way my board kind of hops like that a lot when I surf, especially the bigger waves. Like hitting a lot of chop, and that's why I fall off so much. It's a pretty nice pop up. It's a good posture, but you can see how soft and weak that cutback too was, right? Like my back foot, I did not move that back over the fins. It's a pretty fun day. Beach break on a south swell. Summertime. Surfing with this particular friend here and there, more often around this time period. He actually lived with some Brazilians who were great surfers. One of them was real close friends with Davi Toledo, Felipe's brother. And Davi was really kind, and whenever I surfed with him, he would always like give tips to the whole crew, whoever was surfing out there. So this longboard here was not my first longboard. Like you saw probably a couple other longboards that I rode earlier, but this was like the first one that I actually kept and held on to, and I still have. And when I decided like, fine, I'll learn how to longboard, like so many of my friends are doing it, and I go to these longboarding spots so often anyways, like I might as well kind of get into it. Still was far from my priority, and anytime it was good enough to not ride a longboard, I would avoid it still. This was in Mexico. This was actually a big trip for me as far as surfing progress goes. Like the waves were not that good, and it was small, but the main thing is it was empty, and I was able to surf a lot, like, you know, a couple sessions a day, and it was right there. Like the place we were staying was right on the shore, so I could just really walk out the back porch and surf. And I think at this time I had tried a skateboard, like at a skate park, and like the bowls and, you know, the transition like a little bit, like not dropping in or anything, but just starting at the bottom and just going up and going around just even a little bit. And that taught me a lot about how to actually generate speed and how to actually read like the curve of the wave and use gravity for speed. And that combined with, you know, getting a bunch of empty waves, being able to, oh yeah, and also we got a drone at this time. And this trip was like the first time using the drone and getting drone footage. Had a friend filming. He did a great job getting clips because he had never flown a drone before. But combination of riding a skateboard in a skate park for the first time, and then the trip with empty waves, plus getting drone footage, which gives like a whole different angle and perspective on how I'm utilizing the waves. That I think like took my surfing to another level slightly. A little bit more into longboarding here. Cross stepping started to get a little bit better. And yeah, a lot more drone footage for this little stretch. Drone is just like more fun to film with and really cool angles. Like I said, any footage is good. Any footage you can possibly get is good. But I just like if you look at this angle right here, for example, like you can see the curve of the wave. You can see the steepness of the wave. And compared to being filmed straight on from land, a mushy wave and a steep wave, they look kind of the same. You can't really tell like how the board's fitting into the curve and how much speed you're getting out of the sections in the wave, unless you film from like an angle or from the pier or something like that. Just doing a good amount of surfing around this time. Still going, I think at this time I kind of put the alternative boards away more and was focusing more on longboarding and shortboarding, and I think I made some good progress during that time with surfing too. You know, like a lot of people, especially online, if you look up surfing tips or advice for beginners and stuff, mid lengths get recommended a lot. And they're not a bad option. Like, if you're just trying to go down the line, cruise, you know, have some maneuverability, do some soft turns, they're not a bad option per se. Like, I still ride mid lengths fairly often and had a lot of fun on them, but they're not the best at anything really either. Like, you can't get that performance on them. You're not going to catch waves like a longboard. You're not gonna surf soft waves like this on a mid length, like in a very fun way, in my opinion. Not that you wouldn't have fun, but the longboard on this, you can work on cross stepping and nose riding still, and on something like a groveler on waves slightly better than this, you know, you can work on generating speed and pumping and doing some snaps or off the lips or whatever. Whereas on a mid-length, unless you're on like a shoulder high plus wave, open face, plenty of room to work with, where you can do nice drawn out carves, you're not gonna have much potential with the mid-length and other waves. Like, say this wave is like pretty ideal for a mid-length. I mean, this is like what, shoulder high, a little under shoulder high, but it's open face, long and peeling. Like, that's fun for a mid-length, right? But that's fun for almost any board, really. But say this wave, the last one was like a point break, this one is a beach break, kind of similar, but this one's only like waist high. But the mid-length, you wouldn't really be able to fit turns into this kind of wave very well. Not impossible, but maybe not as fun or not as much potential as, say, a short board or a long board. I made better turns for the time there, and as you saw in the recent clips and in this one, I started getting hang of cross-stepping forward, starting to get some hang fives, and at this point I was starting to be able to actually walk backwards too. That cross-stepping backwards is way harder than cross-stepping forwards. There was a stretch where I was able to get to the nose, but just like couldn't get it back, and that's still a hard part. Floater with the longboard. Yeah, at this point I had started to actually enjoy longboarding. Still never really reach for it unless I have to or I'm really tired or lazy. But I have fun on it now, and at this point I started having fun. Now that longboard is the Infinity Rad Nose Rider, I believe. And it has like a hard edge in the tail, wide nose, fair bit of rocker, like continuous rocker, and I don't really ride that one too much anymore. I ride like a Bing Beacon now, which is like a more dedicated nose rider. But that one was a fun one to learn on. Easier to turn for sure. It's like a good all-round, super basic longboard. Something like that is, if you're not surfing like pitchy beach breaks, something like that is a really good board to learn on after the soft top, I would say. I think if I were to do it over, I would have gotten something like that early on and ridden that a lot. Then gotten my like wave fundamentals down on longboard, like reading waves and positioning, because nose riding teaches you a lot about reading the wave and positioning, and it actually helped my shortboarding a lot by riding a longboard and getting to the point of being able to do nose rides. So if I started over, I probably would have gone like foamy for a tiny bit, just not hurt myself or other people, because you do hit yourself in the head and bang into things and hit other people all the time in the beginning. Then I probably would have gone a longboard like the one I mentioned. Then probably worked my way to a shortboard pretty quickly and not been in the mid-length category too long. Just enough to build my paddle power and get used to like more critical positioning and takeoffs compared to a longboard. This here was another Mexico trip. Only a few days, but not the greatest quality wave again, but a lot of empty ones, which is nice. This is back on that 6.4 burner. And I think I started this session with single fin plus side bites. I forget if I ran like the upright side bites or the Bonzer side bites, but I could not turn that thing. And I ate it on like a bunch of bottom turns where I would lean but the board would stay flat and tracking and I would just fall off. There might be a clip of that on this here. Yeah, right there. And user error for sure, but at some point I switch it over to a thruster and you can see just how much more forgiving and maneuverable the thruster is. Because again, for the most part, I'm not moving my back foot far enough back all the time, and I still have problems with that. That's like the main thing I'm working on right now. And of course, cleaning up my pop-up again. That bad habit always creeps back in. I've learned that, like, for myself, if I paddle into the wave and my eyes are up and I read the wave instead of looking down, and I get to my feet like smoothly and calmly and in a good like crouched kind of sprinter position that you see all the pros do instead of like kind of squat position, I surf the wave so much better. Like, it sets up everything else so much better. I remember this wave. I felt like one of my better ones. That was a decent turn. That was a 5.8 stamps fuse. I think even like thicker, wider dims than a stock one. It was just like a beater board that I bought, but actually ended up having a lot of fun on it. That same board. I have a lot of stamps boards, and there's 2 Trimcraft boards, and I've had a lot of other brands too, like Lost and writing right now. I have a JS, Lost, Panda. This was in Vietnam on like a tiny little fish, like a 5.2 fish. Waves there are very inconsistent and mushy a lot of the time. It can get pretty good, but it's rare. Might do a quiver video next soon. Let me know if you want to see that. Like I said, the other surfer that inspired me to make this, he mostly pretty much only stuck to short boards, and I think that helped his shortboarding performance, surfing progression a lot. But I've ridden all kinds of boards, and I still do, and I think that's partly taken away from my performance surfing, but it's made me like a, decent surfer all around with like all kinds of different craft. And like I said, it's fun, and I think that's given me a lot of like knowledge and understanding about how different boards work and how different board designs work, and especially what suits different waves and less experienced surfers, like beginner, intermediate surfers. So I think I could answer a lot of questions that newer or newish surfers might have about all kinds of different boards, give good advice or suggestions about boards. So I'll probably do a quiver video breaking down like the ones I have right now. It's a pretty good variety, and who they might suit, what type of waves they might suit, all that. Felt like my surfing was pretty decent here, April 2024. Felt like that was one of my better waves. Used the wave for speed, and turn at the end was decent. Back foot still not all the way back, but not terrible. Pump, decent turn, see more top to bottom there, more utilizing the wave since that Mexico trip and getting the drone, I feel at least. I think like positioning, wave catching has always been kind of my strong suit even early on. I don't like surfing crowded places or dealing with crowds. Like, I'll often choose a crappier but less crowded break rather than deal with crowds. That's kind of changing now. Like, I feel like I need to surf better waves, and if I have to deal with the crowd, then I'll deal with the crowd. But even so, I felt like I was always decent at getting my wave count, even in crowds. And that was not a big problem for me. I think for me, it's been like kinesthetic awareness, like feeling where my feet are on the board and feeling what the wave is doing. And like only just recently, like here you can say I guess I'm sort of surfing on rail, but sort of still pretty flat. Only more recently did I get like a real feel for like heels and toes when it comes to getting the board on rail. Like that's a 5.7 Stamps Grinder X, so small and easy to whip around. So I felt like I was turning it properly, but you know, some of these are decent. But even that, see, it's like a pretty flat turn, like not really on rail. And part of that's back foot positioning, but part of that's also like I wasn't really utilizing my ankles and going heel to toe very well. That was a pretty solid backside turn. In a row, very similar. This is again on that kind of fat 5.8 Stamps Fuse, which is kind of like a fishy board. Slightly shortboardy swallowtail, but the nose is very fishy. Yeah, wave count, positioning, ocean awareness was pretty decent, but learning to read the real details and little ripples and, you know, parts of the wave that will give you speed and parts that will bog you and stuff like that. That was a huge game changer in developing more feeling and kinesthetic awareness. I'm a very like in my head type person. Like I think things, conceptual person rather than like bodily feeling type person. I'm not as connected to my bodily sensations and feelings as much as some people I know. Always been more of like a numbers and theories and whatever type person. But more recently I've been learning to get in touch with like my senses more and realizing like how that's another type of intelligence that I'm not all that developed in, but I'm starting to work on. And talking with and especially observing people and other surfers that are more in that realm, more in the feeling, more sensory realm, and how they perceive things and how they do things. It's taught me a lot. And a lot of the time those people are not the best at like being able to take their experience and what they feel and what they do and intellectualizing that or turning that into like words or explaining that. Like they're way more intuitive, I would say. Like I'm not as intuitive in that sense when it comes to movement and spatial awareness and stuff like that. Like I am athletic, I did do a lot of sports, but I wouldn't say like I'm a natural. I got things pretty quickly, but because I worked hard, I got really into it, and I started young and have good coordination. But like, there's some people, both guys and girls, that to me are like natural athletes or natural dancers, or you know, like movement and picking up physical skills just comes so much more naturally to them that if we practice equal minutes and did the exact same approach or structure to it, like I think they would progress faster than me. And I make up for that a lot by, I guess, practicing more, or like trying to learn more from the masters or people that know what they're doing, researching more or whatever. Like I try to make up ground compared to someone like that by learning intellectually, I guess, about the thing and then trying to apply it that way. But I think in some ways I get in my own way doing that, and I'm too much in here instead of just doing the thing like a kid. I felt pretty good about this one. This was recorded on like a old school camcorder, which is pretty cool, but you know, this was really crappy conditions with almost no one out, and I'm on a 5.7, like 27 point something liter thruster. I'm like 5'9.5". I weigh about 155, 160 by the way. I thought I groveled pretty well in those conditions on that board. Felt pretty good about it, at least. That blue board that I just said I like, felt like I groveled pretty decently on. Thinking about making that the board that I just ride a lot. Try to figure out, you know, like sticking to one board and for most conditions until I really figure out the foot placement, all that stuff. You guys tell me what board you think I should ride. I have a 510 version of that one too. 29.4 liters or something. I forget the dims. But maybe it'll help if I do that quiver video. Maybe you guys can tell me which one I should be riding. This one's the 510 version, I think. It's a white board. Yeah, because the blue one is EPS 5.7. This one's 510 PU. I was thinking about making one of those too, because they can grovel okay. They could handle up to like head high, slightly overhead okay. I recently got like a driver 3.0 in the quiver just to see if something super high performance would benefit me. I've only ridden it like once or twice though in non-ideal conditions, so I haven't really confirmed whether or not though, but I get the sense that it needs good waves. I put this cam one in just because I felt like that turn. It's one of the first times I kind of like pivoted all the way in a tight arc with my foot all the way back. So you see from that one till here, June, there's a big old gap, which like I said, winter of 2024, spring of 2024, I didn't surf much. Playing a lot of golf and just busy with doing other things. Didn't want to deal with the cold. Yeah, just wasn't surfing much, but then once it got warm, it got too hot for golfing for me, and I surfed again, and it was so nice, and I was like, surfing's what I love. Golfing, I like golfing too, but not on the same level as surfing for me. Not at all. So there was a lot of small waves, and I was doing actually a lot of teaching with golfing, but then because I was surfing a lot, I was like, you know what, I'll give some surfing lessons to beginners. Summer, good for it. So I ended up surfing small soft spots a lot, so I got back to longboarding first. Some of my friends surf with a lot. Always fun to surf with friends. This was borrowing or just trying out another friend's longboard. This one's super flat, it's very heavy compared to what I have, and I just wanted to get a feel for what it was like compared to mine. This was before I bought my Bing again. I think I ended up buying it shortly after this, but yeah, like even looking at these different logs and longboards, like they can look so similar, especially in pictures, even in person. But actually riding them is so different. So one of my friends too, she was in one of the clips like way earlier, and like most of my friends started learning as adults, and some of them, most of them, have gotten quite good in their own realm. Most of them longboarders. Amongst the friends that I surf with, only like maybe one or two of them, if at all, really got into shortboarding. Besides the very first one who went to med school who stopped surfing. Maybe none of them actually shortboard or do performance surfing, which affected my perspective and my willingness to get into it early on for so long. This is my sister's longboard. This is like a 9.0 Dancy. Dancy makes great longboards. I mean, that thing's made for a girl, probably quite a bit smaller than me, but works really well. I think this is still my Infinity longboard. You see, like June, right when I kind of get back into surfing, I'm kind of awkward again, and I'm not getting those nose rides yet, and definitely regressed, and I'm rusty. I know for sure my paddling power was terrible for like a month. Started surfing a lot more, and like I said before, I probably averaged like during the stretches where I was surfing, so not including my time off from surfing, those first 4 or 5 years, I probably averaged like, I'd say maybe 3 days a week. Some stretches, maybe 4, rarely 5. But this year, from June on, I've probably been averaging closer to like 5 days a week. Been surfing a lot more. Not quite every day, but there's been weeks where I surfed every day, and most week I'll surf like at least 3, at least 4 probably these days. The waves have been tiny as of making this video, so not as much surfing. It's back on a shortboard after my return to surfing. That one is a Lost MR California Twin 5.7 UPS. I think the Lightspeed one. And it seemed like a good board, but for some reason it didn't click with it. It felt like weirdly boaty for some reason. Like I've ridden boards that are more volume in a small package like that didn't feel as boaty for me anyways. Maybe it was the weight combined with the dimensions, but it didn't quite work for me. Back on the mid-length, the 8.0 Haley pin that I used to ride a lot, and yeah, I mean, super rusty, super awkward, catching terrible waves, bad positioning. Sorry. Same session. This is a 510 Uber driver. Yeah, just a normal Uber driver, not the XL. This one's in Lightspeed too. That's another board I think I should have held on to because I had just started getting back into surfing. I felt like it was too, I don't know if it was too advanced of a board for me or what, but I felt like it had more rocker than I was used to, and especially I was surfing this really soft wave a lot at this time throughout the summer because again, like teaching and friends and stuff. But yeah, I didn't keep that Uber driver for long, but I feel like if I had kept that one probably would have been a good one for me to do, one of the boards I stick to in most conditions. So it's back on the 6.4 burner. I think this is all in the same day, all 3 of those boards. I'm wondering if this one is one that I should ride more. It's like, it's got that extra length, it's got that extra width. Get in the wave early, get my feet set early, but it's still got pretty foiled out rails and got a decent amount of rocker for turns. So I'm wondering, like, is this maybe one of the board I should ride a lot? Like, dial in my technique. Is this one like too big? Maybe not ideal for like smaller days. Maybe I should stick to something more traditional, performance, thruster. Right into a closeout on that one. Not even a barreling closeout, just a straight closeout. Back foot slips off and eats it. This day felt much bigger in person than it looks on camera, and yeah, like waves up to overhead and stuff like this don't scare me, but barreling waves, like really steep waves, especially over a reef or something like that, they still kind of freak me out. Like, I don't have much experience with those kind of waves, but I'd like to get there. I want to surf much more quality waves and go on surf trips and, you know, go to Indo and Hawaii and all that stuff and go for really, really good waves. But you'll see, well, maybe you won't see, I don't have too much recent footage, but recently I've started not surfing these soft wave spots too much and trying to go for places with pitchier waves and more performance oriented waves. Yeah, just try to work on my shortboarding and my turns, and even try to look for some barrels. I've not made it cleanly out of one yet. Had some head dips, you know, some things like that. Pulled into a handful of solid ones, but got clipped on the way out and didn't make it. But I surf spots and conditions that barrel so rarely that I haven't really had the opportunity to even go for many. That's one thing I want to change. Like, I do want to go to spots that barrel somewhat more often when I can. I mean, in this region in general, that's pretty rare, even at the spots that can do that. But I'll look for it when I can. Like few weeks ago or last month or something, one of the beach breaks around here was going off pretty good, and I came at the right time, and it's relatively uncrowded and barrels all up and down the beach, and that was like my first day surfing faster pitcher waves in a long time. You know, straight into like a slightly overhead day, and I was so not used to the takeoff, and it felt so fast and violent relative to what I was used to, and it took me like the whole session to kind of get a feel for it again. Like, I was still pulling into some and getting really worked compared to what I was used to. It was a little bit scary at first, but it wasn't too bad. And after that session and getting the confidence to like get my back shoulder forward, dropping in and really committing to it, gained a lot of confidence after that. And yeah, I want to have more sessions like that, more opportunities at barrels for sure. I know I'm not really talking about the footage much that's playing right in front of me as I'm talking about my whole surf experience and surf journey, but yeah, if you guys have any questions or comments about any of the clips or learning to surf or boards, anything at all, you know, just leave it below and I'll definitely get to you. Writing here. I think this is still on that 5.7 Lost MR California Twin before I sold that one. Yeah, at this point, like experimenting with different kind of like hybrid-y shortboards like this, and had like an album Vesper Shia for a little bit, and that Uber driver like you saw, and different boards like that, kind of in that range of like small wave shortboards that can still do turns, and trying to figure out what I wanted to kind of stick to. Pulled out that twin that I rode so much throughout this whole thing. A couple waves. That thing's like hanging on the wall. You can't see it. Hanging on the wall above me now. I don't ride it. Haven't ridden in a long time now. When I do ride a mid-length these days, I actually have this 6.6 longfish that's like on the thinner side, a little bit more on the progressive side, but still a wide tail, and that thing's been super fun. Here finally I think is maybe the first clips with the Bing beacon. It's a 9.4. Started riding this thing a good amount this last summer, and I don't have any clips of it, but I got like first few Hang 10s that I actually made. And yeah, a little bit harder to turn than Infinity, but quite a bit easier to nose ride. So it's back on that Lost MR. Weak on the turns. I feel like at this point I had regressed shortboarding quite a bit from those like April 2024 clips or whatever. That was okay, but that was okay too. But it looked more awkward. It looked more stiff. There was that period in the 2024 that I feel like, although I still wasn't serving that critical or that radically at all, the style looked pretty good. Like, it looked pretty smooth. It was okay. But I think I had gone backwards a little bit. There, you can see how way too far forward on the board I am. Yeah, a couple issues that I ran into when I did get into shortboarding was like when I had ridden flatter, longer mid-lengths for so long that don't want to take off nose to the beach in a steeper wave because the nose digs and, you know, you pearl, you beat it. So from riding those kind of boards so long, I had gotten used to like angling and kind of running away from the pocket. And when I got into shortboarding and riding smaller boards, like that habit stuck with me, and it wasn't until like watching OMBE a lot of their stuff that I realized I was like running away from the pocket and just pumping down the line all the time, rushing instead of, you know, now that I have a shorter board, especially the ones with rockers, like I could actually fit in the pocket in the more steep critical parts and take off straight and get the speed from going straight down do turns in the pocket. So that took me a while to figure out. So September, that's 6 years in from 2019 to 2025. So just a small little day. Longboarding. One sec, my cat. Say hi. Yeah, this time I was getting a decent feel for the longboard. These are like the last couple of days of clips. That's not bad. This is on a 6.1 chili something, I don't know, 29 liters or whatever. This was, I think, like 2 or 3 days after that first time back at the steeper, faster wave areas on that barreling day. Yeah, so this was maybe like a few days after that, where it had become much smaller, but I got so much more confident paddling into and dropping into those type of waves with a little bit more shape by this point. Still kind of out of control and felt a little fast for me as far as like reading the sections. It would happen so much more quickly than those slow point and cobblestone reef breaks that I had been surfing so much. This is on that 510 stamps, X. Is that a beach break? Glass. Yeah. This is on that 6.6 longfish. Point break. Super small day. And you know, I was saying like mid lengths aren't the best for small waves, and that does come down to like the type of mid length, and maybe a longboard would have been more fun on this day. But this particular mid length I feel like is fun in even really small stuff. Yeah, I thought some of these turns were all right, and honestly, that board, I don't ride it a ton either, but it's actually one of my favorite boards. I haven't had it that long, but like the very first time I surfed it was so much fun. And you know, you can't surf it the most progressively, and I don't think it stands out like if I'm surfing it as far as like how it looks surfing it, but just the feeling on this thing is so fun. It's like really thin and gets speed so easily, glides so easily, but the thinness allows it to like get on rail a little bit easier. But yeah, that's my 6 years of surfing. Thanks for watching, and yeah, like, subscribe, comment if you have any questions or anything. Thanks for watching.